first time I noticed the children, it was through a corner of my office window, late on a Thursday afternoon. They were there, standing, or hovering, I couldn't be sure, just beyond the chain-link fence at the edge of the empty lot behind my apartment building. 2 of them, maybe 3. They smiled, their faces bright and deliberate in a way that seemed rehearsed. One waved. And yet as I squinted from behind the glass, I realized that their shadows did not follow. Their feet did not meet the earth. They did not rustle the dry grass. They seemed to float, and as though gravity had forgotten them entirely. At first, I told myself it was a trick of perspective. The lot was uneven, littered with rubble and broken glass. Perhaps I was imagining it. I dismissed the unease, closed the blinds, and returned to my work. But by the following week, they were there again, always at the same time. Just after 3 in the afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the sky took on the hollow color of washed-out copper. They never spoke. They never moved toward the building. They just smiled. And sometimes just barely, I thought I caught them watching me. I began keeping a journal, noting their appearances. 2, sometimes 3, always the same postures. The girl, I decided, had a bow in her hair. The boy wore a sweater too large for him, sleeves dragging past his hands. They were almost indistinguishable from ordinary children except for the hovering, except for the way the light bent around them like air displaced by some subtle force. I never saw the parents, never heard their voices, and when I looked closer, there were no footprints in the dust. Nothing moved under them. I tried to confront the phenomenon clinically. I measured, I observed. At first, I rationalized their presence as a shared hallucination. My neighbors would confirm it or deny it, but they either did not notice them or claimed to be unaware. One elderly man on the 2nd floor even suggested I might be seeing the future. I did not know what to make of that, though it disturbed me more than it comforted. One evening, a week before the first snowfall, I saw them from the other side of the building when the lot was in shadow. They were not outside then, but inside my line of sight through the neighbor's apartment window, mirrored faintly by the reflection of my own. 2 small figures crouched on the carpet, just beyond a low coffee table. They watched me, their eyes unnervingly still, but neither moved a muscle. I knew then that I was not merely being observed from a distance. Something about the angle, the precision of their posture, made my chest tighten. It was deliberate. They knew I was watching, and they were aware of the effect it had on me. I stopped leaving the blinds open. I stopped glancing out windows unless absolutely necessary. The apartment became darker. I found myself memorizing the precise hours when the sky would darken, when the shadows would lengthen. My work suffered. I began drinking in small, measured doses to quiet the tension that tightened around my ribs. Still, they found ways to intrude. Sometimes when I sat alone in my bedroom, I would feel a brush of air across my neck as if someone had leaned close. I would turn and nothing would be there. But I could feel it, the weightless pressure of presence. Then they appeared inside the apartment. I will not describe the moment in any sensational way because there was nothing to describe. No crashing of doors, no sudden burst of movement. I had left a notebook on the floor beside the couch. The next morning, a page was turned, not torn, not crumpled, just turned. I did not remember doing it. My first thought was sleepwalking, but I had never had such episodes. The following nights, small things shifted. A pen where I hadn't left it, a faint indentation in the carpet, the sound of soft footsteps that ceased as soon as I strained to hear them. The children did not speak, did not interact, but they were there, always at the edge of vision, always hovering, just slightly off the ground. And then I began to hear the whispers, not real words, not sentences, but a static of voices like a recording being played backward, just beyond comprehension. It would happen when I was alone in the shower, in the bathroom, brushing my teeth. In the silence of my sleep, I decided finally to confront them. I left the blinds open, stayed at my desk, and waited for the hour. They appeared, as always, smiling, bowing slightly in acknowledgement as though they were expected guests. I spoke aloud. "Who are you? What do you want?" The room did not change. The air did not shiver. Yet the children tilted their heads in perfect unison. The shadows they did not cast remained absent. I felt deeply that they could hear me, that they understood far more than children ought to understand. I became obsessed. I began documenting every movement, recording hours of footage. When I watched the videos, the children were absent. In every frame, they were gone. The hovering, the smiling, the waving. It existed only in my perception, or perhaps only in my apartment. I stopped sleeping. My hands shook when I held a cup of coffee. My reflection in mirrors began to appear slightly delayed, as if my own movements were not entirely mine. Then I started noticing footprints. Not in the lot, not outside, but inside my apartment. Tiny impressions in the dust along the windowsill, along the carpet edge. I lived alone. I cleaned obsessively. The footprints would reappear. And always, just beyond reach. The faint pressure of weightless feet, as though standing on the tips of air. I tried ignoring them. I tried reasoning that if I failed to observe, they would vanish. But absence only made the manifestation sharper, more deliberate. I would hear a thump in the ceiling above me, or a soft shuffle in the hall outside my door. And when I turned, there they were, peeking from the edges of mirrors, the corners of doors, their feet still impossibly suspended. The final escalation happened during a snowfall, heavy, quiet snow that dulled the world into white silence. I woke to the sound of a small knocking on the inside of the window. I had checked the blinds. They were drawn, but the sound was unmistakable. Tap, tap, tap. Slowly, methodically, each knock mirrored the beat of my own heart. I forced myself to look. There they were, pressed against the glass, eyes bright, mouths curved in those practiced smiles, and their feet were still not touching anything. I opened the window. I do not know why. Perhaps some remnant of rationality hoped they would vanish if acknowledged. Perhaps some need to prove I was not insane. They stepped closer. For a moment, the snow swirled around their feet as if brushing against nothing. Then they were gone, and yet, when I looked down, the snow bore no footprints. Not a trace. Days later, I found a drawing on the inside of my kitchen window. It was childish in execution. 3 stick figures, all smiling, all hovering. One had a bow in her hair, and one wore a too large sweater. Beneath the figures were words, scrawled in small, precise letters I did not recognize. "We see you." I moved out that week. The apartment had become uninhabitable in a way that went beyond fear. It was tainted with observation, with attention that could not be escaped. But even in the new place, in a building surrounded by life and light, I could not shake the feeling. Sometimes when I paused at my desk, I saw a fleeting shape in the corner of my vision. A smile, a wave. And I realized in a cold, clinical clarity that the children were no longer confined to a place. They had entered perception itself. They linger in the spaces we ignore, in the edges of vision, in the quiet, reflective moments before sleep. They are patient, unhurried, waiting for recognition, for the moment when disbelief falters and curiosity outweighs caution. And when that happens, you are no longer merely watched. You are cataloged, measured, and understood in a way that does not permit escape. So if you ever catch a child in the corner of your vision, smiling, waving, or peering from under a bed, remember this: they may not be children at all, and the ground beneath them may not be theirs to touch. Their presence is a careful test, a quiet intrusion into the fragile boundaries of perception. The longer you look, the longer you exist within their observation. Be wary of corners and windows, and never underestimate the silence between their movements. Curiosity is not harmless. If this story unsettled you, good. That means you're paying attention. Subscribe for more nightmares that refuse to fade. Until next time, stay vigilant.